Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I know it's morning time for Switzerland, and we are all very excited for the session. A little bit about me: I'm currently working at 𝗕cie, and I'm also contributing to OWASP as chair. I'm also running certain diversity initiatives. But today we will be talking about cyber futures trends, which is one of the topic which I think needs to talk about. We need to address. So we have some really eminent leaders, and for the first session, I have CEO and co-founder for SafeStack, and her name is Erica-Anderson. I will just let her speak about herself. She's been doing so much around this area. So over to you, Erica.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And hello, everyone from Wellington, New Zealand. My name is Erica-Anderson. As I was introduced, I'm the COO and the co-founder of SafeStack. But generally, I tend to introduce myself as a huge security nerd. I've been working in cybersecurity, engineering, and IT for over 10 years, and I've seen a lot. I've been a platform engineer, an incident responder, a consultant, a tester. I've worked for small startups, and I've worked for very, very large global enterprises, public and private sector, US and New Zealand. And I've seen behind the curtain on quite a few organizations and quite a few tech stacks. So I'm really chuffed to be here and to be invited to discuss with you the top trend that I wanted to chat about, which is software supply chain. So software supply chain, which I know is a topic of one of the discussions at the in-person event in Davos. And the reason why I picked this top trend to talk about is that, the technology that we're using and building our software products with are complex. And in 2023, they're just going to get more complex because for the first time ever, our software is made with more third-party code than code that we actually write ourselves. And a sign of this trend goes back for a while, but one of maybe the stark events that perhaps some of our teams kind of faced was back in December 2021 with the log4shell and the log4j vulnerability that was quite massive. But it was one of those shocking vulnerabilities that was quite critical, but it was buried under so many layers of technology that actually quite a few organizations weren't actually sure if they were vulnerable to it. And recently, this past December, there were CI/CD tool problems where there were a whole bunch of issues where keys were getting leaked, and therefore access to many repositories were at risk. And in most cases, it gets quite tricky because with this third-party code and these third-party software, it can be really hard to tell whether or not you're at risk. It's like a nesting egg of dependencies, and it goes quite deep. And I feel, especially in 2023, the focus on this trend is going to get a lot more attention. We're using quickly rising and very popular technology. A lot of us have perhaps tinkered quite a lot with recent AI technology. AI gathered research in chat and AI gathered visuals, and a lot of organizations might be using this technology to try and create features to ship them very quickly and keep a competitive advantage over any other organizations. And we're focused so much on shipping and pushing these things out that the risk involved in some of this new technology, and especially technology that perhaps isn't created by your organization, is a bit unknown. And especially, heck, last year, GitHub Copilot with AI generated code, right? So even a lot of the code that we're writing for our own software might not even be coming from our teams. So really, for me, the biggest trend is software supply chain. Now, in terms of what to do about it and what my thoughts are of what I think a lot of us will be thinking about and planning for this year is that ultimately, and sadly, you can't solve this overnight. Think back as to how long and how much energy and time it took to build the software that you have now. These systems are complex and they take a lot of time to actually develop and to build. So I think for a lot of us, this year is going to be about planning a mixture of things that can help with this type of problem. Now, the mixture of what to do about this is going to vary by organization. There's not going to be one single thing that will work for everyone, right? And I think one of the key ingredients that's going to be important for this year for a lot of us to consider is really going to be focused on building that security culture that involves everyone in the organization that's involved in building software. And there's typically been a very strong focus in the past of, just making sure that your developers know how to write secure code, right? But that's not going to create and instill a positive culture, because we all know it takes more than just a developer to build a system, right? It takes good product people, it takes project managers, it takes engineers, it takes testers and architects and designers. There's even specialized engineers, depending on the technology that you're using, right? It takes your leadership team, so a lot of you in the room. And culture only works when it's something that's shared, and especially shared amongst the team that are building the technology, right? And, for some of you, I'm sure you're probably thinking like, DevSecOps, I'll buy one DevSecOps, please. And we hear this term used quite a lot. But DevSecOps isn't a tool, and it's not a widget, and it's not something that you can just purchase. It's a way of working, right? It includes explaining how security fits into everyone's role, not just the developers who need to write secure code, right? It comes into the developers of knowing how to maybe write test cases for security situations. It comes down to the leadership team of understanding the risks that their systems have and helping their teams prioritize by setting objectives that involve security. It comes down to the product owners and the project managers to make sure that when they're planning out pieces of work, that it's including security throughout the whole thing, right? Now, this culture is not going to solve all of your problems at the forefront, and there's going to be some other things that, as part of looking into 2023, that you'll have to consider. Part of that might be hiring, more security people. I'm a security person myself, right? And I've got many smart friends who are definitely quite skilled at helping people with these type of problems. But it's not the only ingredient. It's not the key ingredient. It's definitely getting security help is definitely going to help with finding those third-party dependency vulnerabilities that currently exist and fixing them at the very end of that, that workflow and that development lifecycle. But if you're only solving the problem at the very end and fixing those and remediating them at the very end, it's going to lead to more, right? It's a bit of a whack-a-mole situation. And don't even get me started on maybe being the lone security person amongst many people and that stress and that pressure that comes along with it, right? So yeah, that's my top trend for 2023. It's software supply chain. My advice for what we should be thinking about in 2023 in terms of trying to think about this and plan for it, it definitely comes down to what are the tangible things we can do to start instilling that security culture? What can we do to make sure everyone knows what their role is in security? And how can we educate? How can we train them? How can we make sure that we're prioritizing that as an important thing? Because solving this is going to take time. But just like all of the amazing systems and software that your organizations have built, it takes a team. And if the whole team is on team security, then you'll build some amazing and secure systems. So that's my top trend.
Oh, that's totally amazing. So you're saying that we need to take a look at software supply chain. We also need to make sure that we are embedding the software secure code reviews as part of the whole ecosystem, or we would be in trouble. And we need to concentrate more around software composition analysis, because that's one important thing. Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And there's so much different ways that you could tackle that in part of, building security into that. It can come from code reviews. It can come from, there's some really fantastic people and in the, some of the communities like OWASP and PurpleBook talking a lot about, software bill of materials and some of those how people can do it. Sometimes there's tools and sometimes there's widgets that can help as well, but really having everyone understand what their role is and what to do is really quite important to instilling that culture and having it shared.
Yeah, that's totally amazing. Thank you so much, Erica, for sharing the wonderful insights